Have you ever heard that writing is 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration? What if I told you that writing could be 98% inspiration? Welcome to Intuitive Writer. I'm your host, Camille Chan. I'm here to show you how you can tap into inspiration and make it a part of your everyday writing practice. Say goodbye to those days of perspiring over the keyboard and hello to inspiration. Hello everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Intuitive Writer. I'm your host, Camille Chan, and I am so excited to be back here with you, helping all of you embark on your intuitive writing adventure. Intuitive writing has completely changed my life. I write faster, I write better. Before I developed my practice of intuitive writing, when you looked at one of my manuscripts, it seriously looked like something had died on it. There was so much red ink, page after page of red ink, and maybe some of you can relate. And on top of massive edits, I would always have massive deletes. There were always thousands and thousands of words that had to be deleted, useless scenes, characters I had to get rid of, plot holes. I mean, you name it, it ended up on the cutting room floor. And intuitive writing has really streamlined that process. That's not to say that I don't still edit. That's not to say that I don't still have to, remove scenes or take out characters, but it's been drastically streamlined and drastically reduced. And I'm constantly surprising myself at how clean my manuscripts are coming out now. And my main editor is my husband, and he can attest. He used to bleed all over my stories after I bled all over them. And he just finished reading one of my books a few weeks ago, and there was hardly any marks on it. I mean, there were only maybe one or two places where there were some major issues that I knew I had to drill back into and work on. And I can contribute all of this back to changing my writing practice, to adopting this intuitive writing practice. And honestly, intuitive writing has also brought a lot of depth and complexity to my stories, depth and complexity to the characters that I don't think would have made it onto the page without this practice. And all seriousness aside, intuitive writing has made writing so much fun. I mean, writing was fun to begin with. All of you are writers, you know what I'm talking about. Writing is a blast, it's fun. But adding the layer of connecting with something bigger than myself, of being challenged to take my work to new levels, and just knowing that I'm a part of something bigger than myself, it's been really transformative and humbling. Looking back at my 30 plus years of writing books, I know that I have always used my intuition to write. I have always co-created stories with the universe. But the thing is, I did it unconsciously. And there's a really big difference between doing it unconsciously and doing it consciously. There's a magic you can bring to your stories by making this an intentional practice. It's really mind-blowing where your stories and your characters will go as you develop this practice. And this was really the big motivation to start this podcast. I really want to help other writers out there access this technique and make it a part of their daily writing practice. I believe that most writers out there are already using their intuition when they write. So today we're going to do something a little fun. I'm going to help you examine your writing experiences and identify those moments when you were using your intuition. That's going to be fun. But first, I just want to recap briefly on what we learned in last week's episode. I'll be sure I link it below in case you need to listen to the whole thing as a refresher. But intuitive writing is a writing process. It is a very specific technique for crafting stories, and it is done by using your intuition. Your intuition is your spiritual antenna array. It is your unique way of connecting with the universe and the energies that want to work with you. And the most important thing to remember about intuitive writing is that it is not a solitary endeavor. You're not sitting at your computer creating alone. You are co-creating stories with the universe. Intuitive writing is the practice of connecting consciously with the stories, the energies, and the characters that want to work with you. It's connecting with the energies that want to flow through you and find life on the page. That's intuitive writing. So how do you know when you're using your intuition to write? For most of you, this is probably something that you are already doing unconsciously. And even if you're not, it's something that you have the capability to do. So let's take the example of a baby. All babies are born with the ability to walk, but it takes a while for them to figure out how to access those muscles, how to develop those muscles, and how to use them fully. We can also take the example of a marathon. There's very few people that can roll out their front door and run a marathon. But with the right training plan, most people can train their bodies to do it in 6 months to a year. And this is what intuitive writing is like. Intuition is a muscle. It's a muscle you have to learn how to access. It's a muscle you have to develop. You have to learn how to use your spiritual antenna array and connect with the universe. And I really believe that most writers out there are already doing it on a subconscious level when they're writing. I have a writing group, a mastermind group of dedicated writers. And when I first broached this subject with them, all of them had experiences that indicated they were subconsciously using their intuition to write their novels. And I really believe this is going to be the experience that most of you have. So how do you know when the universe is making contact with you? How do you know when your intuition is working its magic? When your intuition is tapping into inspiration and helping you co-create with the universe? I like to describe these as your aha moments. It is the burst of insight that you'll get like a bolt of lightning, like a story idea that will come to you in the middle of nowhere. It's that magical moment at the keyboard when you're typing away and all of a sudden your character does something totally wild and unexpected and awesome. It's those moments when you're doing something really mundane, like exercising or washing the dishes, and all of a sudden you figure out a plot hole that you've been struggling with. These are those aha moments that I'm talking about. These are those moments when your intuition is aligned, when your intuition is connected with the energies that want to work from you, and that you are co-creating with the universe, that these stories are showing up and saying, hey, I'm here, I want to help, I want to have a voice. So yeah, these are those aha moments. And I think if you look at your writing experiences, you're all going to be able to identify moments when you have had this happen to you, when you've been connected with your intuition and the universe. So now I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story about a time in my life about 7 or 8 years ago when I unconsciously used my intuition with my storytelling. And I'm sharing this story because I want you to have an example of how it can happen and what it might look like for you. So yeah, this was about 6 or 7 years ago, and the memory is so vivid. I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly what the car felt like. It was a very warm, sunny day. I was on a very long drive, and I was somewhere between Napa County and Sonoma County here in California, and I was surrounded by vineyards. The sun was shining into the front windshield. The inside of the car was really cozy and warm, and I was surrounded by nature on all sides. And as I was driving, all of a sudden one of my characters from A Minor Story showed up. Her name is Morningstar. And just to give you a little background on Morningstar, she is the mother of the main character in my Sulan series. The Sulan series is a young adult dystopian fiction, and this is a near future society that is characterized by economic and environmental disaster. And Sulan is a math prodigy, and all she wants to be when she grows up is a mercenary like her mother. She adores her mother and wants to grow up and be just like her. But the world has other plans for Sulan. And much of her adventures revolve around her fighting against all the things that society has decided for her, and her asserting herself and really becoming her own person. So Morningstar is her mother, a minor character. And this day, as I was driving through the vineyards, she showed up in the car with me. And of course, I had no idea. But looking back on it now, I know she was there with me, and she brought her story to me. She brought her entire origin stories. And when I say that she showed up in the car with me, I don't mean that I saw her. Sometimes I do see the energies or the characters that I work with. That's not what happened in this instance. It was a feeling in my body. It was all of her emotions funneling through me and filling me up. She felt like a physical presence, and her story played in my mind like a movie. I saw her family. She has two parents, an older brother, and they live in San Francisco. Her parents run a struggling business. They own a food cart and they sell food on the streets of San Francisco. They struggle to make a living at it. And her older brother attempts to supplement their income by signing up for illegal cage fights on the side with his best friend. And Morningstar very much disapproves of this choice, even though it's his way of trying to take care of the family. She doesn't care for his best friend, who is a street urchin and an orphan who is living by his wits and his brawn. She thinks he's a bad influence on her brother. And all Morningstar wants is to go to school. She's a great student and she wants to grow up, go to college, and build a nice life for herself and have a family. And in the midst of all this, her parents both get very sick. And because they don't have a lot of money, and because the world that Morningstar lives in is on the verge of environmental and economic collapse, there's a lot of struggle going on around, and there's just not enough resources or money for her parents to get the medical support that they need, and they both die very quickly and very unexpectedly. So she also soon loses her brother, who gets in trouble with the mafia from his cage fighting, and he's also killed. So in a very short time, Morningstar's complete world is turned upside down. She's a teenage girl with no resources. Her entire family is gone. She has nowhere to go, and her brother's best friend steps up to help her out. This is the same friend who got her brother into cage fighting to begin with, so she's not too fond of him. He is a very smart, strong, wily teenage boy, and he promises Morningstar that he will teach her to take care of herself. So she's forced to leave her life behind, take a life on the street, and learn how to fight so that she can get enough money for food and to take care of herself. So this is her origin story, and the whole thing played out in my mind like a movie while I was driving. And I call this downloading. When I receive very large amounts of data, when my intuition is aligned and the universe is speaking to me, I call it downloading. And they tend to be pretty long, sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Sometimes you can actually feel it moving through your body. And yeah, so this is an example of a time when that happened, when I wasn't even trying to make a connection. Now that I consciously practice working with my intuition and connecting with the energies that want to come through me, this happens very regularly, sometimes in small doses, sometimes in large ones. The part that's a little sad about Morningstar's story is that she came to me, she brought me her story, and I did nothing with it. At the time I received it, I saw very clearly that I could have written it as a spin-off novel in the series, or I could have actually made it into a trilogy. There was enough juice there that I could have gotten a full trilogy out of it. And my writing has taken a new trajectory over the years, and I'm no longer writing young adults. So yeah, I haven't done anything with that story. And knowing what I know now, when something came through so strongly, I completely would have honored it and I would have written it. So I might someday in the future. I'm not sure, but I still feel her. She's still around. She still makes contact once in a while. So maybe someday I will get her story on paper and get it out there. I'm sharing this with you because I really want you to take a look at your writing experiences. So I invite you to grab a journal and think about your writing experiences and write down times in your life when you have connected with the universe. When your intuition has been aligned and when you have received something. Maybe it's just an idea. Maybe it's something very prolonged like I'm describing. Maybe it's just a flash of insight. But the reason I invite you to do this is so that you can prove to yourself, you'll have visual proof in front of you, that you are an intuitive writer, that you have this gift, and that it is something that you can develop, and that it is a practice that you can bring to your writing life every single day. And as you go forward and as this podcast progresses, I invite you to do this anytime you have an intuitive experience. When something comes through to you, just write it down. And you know, 6 months from now, when you flip back through that journal, you're going to be amazed at how many times the universe is reaching out to touch you and to co-create with you and work with you. And it's really beautiful. So I'm excited that you're going to get a chance to do this. And I would love to hear about your experiences. If you want to share them with me, I'm on Instagram at Write with Intuition. So you can send me a DM. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And maybe I'll even get a chance to share a few of your stories in an upcoming episode. That would be very, very cool. So that wraps up our episode for today. I'll be back next week to continue this intuitive writing adventure with all of you. And if you know of any writers who would appreciate and enjoy learning about this writing technique, please share this podcast with them. I would very much appreciate it. It's available on all major podcast platforms, and I'm also on YouTube. All of these episodes are recorded and uploaded into YouTube, so you could also subscribe to me there. So thank you for helping me spread the word, and thank you for being a part of this. I'm super excited, and I will talk to everybody next week. Have a good one. Bye.